So last week you guys had a special treat. Just presented part of our Minimus book. It is my understanding that she completed up to item 28, item number 1 and number 2, and we should start today on number 3 or item 28 of chapter 2, methodology. Is that correct?
Right, correct.
Okay. So just not to catch the train already moving, you see that in item 28, got that kind of shift from the disbelievers. He shift away from the materialists, those who opposes spiritism, to those who actually have been convinced, have become at least sympathetic to the doctrine, to its science, to its philosophy, to its moral teachings. And he describes that those who have been convinced, there are 3 specific types. One that he calls the experimental spiritists, those who are more interested in the phenomena, who are more agreeable, so to say, or sympathetic to the doctrine, but basically based on the phenomena. Now, it is my personal opinion that those are the ones who will stay for as long as the phenomena are interesting, and then when they become boring, seen enough of it, they will move away. They will look for some other source of entertainment, so to say. Or in the process of observation of the phenomena, they will eventually pay attention to the more valuable, or to the true reasons actually that spiritism comes to us. And then he calls another class of the imperfect spiritists, which I kind of put myself in that group, which are those spiritists that they go beyond the phenomena. They're not so curious about the phenomenon anymore. Actually, they understand the phenomena is a very small part of the doctrine, that the revival of the pure, simple Christianity is really the real objective of the doctrine, but are far from being able to act as an spiritist, as a Christian. So those are the ones who are one step ahead, sees the philosophy, sees the moral teachings, admires them, find them extremely good, but unable to really practice them. And then we start the third one, that Kardec called the Christian spiritism, that we have not read yet, correct? So, right, they're going to read for us?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Number 3. Those who are not content with only admiring spiritist morality, mortality, but who practice it and accept all its consequences. Since they are convinced that earthly existence is only a temporary trial, they try to take advantage of such a brief moment to advance on the path of progress, the only one that can lead them to a higher position in the spirit world, endeavoring to do good and subdue their evil tendencies. Friendship with them is always safe, for their firmness of conviction keeps them from all thoughts of evil. Charity is the rule of conduct among them. These are true spiritists, or better still, Christian Spiritists.
Thanks. Now we spent a long time talking about perfection in the first part. Those Christians, Spiritists, are not perfect, okay? Far from perfection. Still in need of reincarnations here amongst us. But have got the idea that the teachings Christ is action. It's not a philosophy to be admired, to be put in a book. That's why he never wrote any book. It's not something to be orchestrated and delegated to others. That's why he never delegated or orchestrated anything. And that's why he came himself and taught by example, by living a life of righteousness. The Christian spirituals are the one who seeks to follow that path, that understanding the doctrines, philosophy, moral teachings, understanding the scientific aspects of the phenomena is so good, it's so important. But if you don't put those things into action, it just makes us the imperfect spiritists. When you move one step ahead, we start to practice what you have learned, then we elevate ourselves to the level of the Christian spiritists. And if you do me a favor, Soraya, read a footnote at the bottom, because I think that's very important.
No, okay. The true Spiritist and the true Christian is one and the same, for all those who practice charity are Jesus' disciples, no matter what denomination they belong to. You want the three of them, right? Number two, our theoretical and practical teachings are always free of charge. Number three, unfortunately, all the back issues of this journal are available only in French and in Portuguese. Thus, throughout this translation, all the author's references to it will be kept in the original French. Okay.
But the important thing is the message from Paul in the Gospel according to Spiritism, is that true Spiritism and true Christians are one and the same. For all of those who practice charity are Jesus' disciples, no matter what denomination they belong to. And that's what we always mention over here, that Christ, Jesus did not come to create Christianity. Jesus Christ to bring a new paradigm of our moral conduct and our relationship with a God that is no longer the judge and the punisher, but the Father. Those are very new paradigms that Christ brings. And to go beyond the previous golden rule is do not to do to others what you don't like, you would not want them to do to you. And Christ says, now do to others what you'd like them to do to you, which means act. To not be bad is no longer enough. Be good is necessary. That's also something that he brings in being proactive. So in essence, a Christian spirit is proactive in the exercise of charity to the best of our abilities. Naturally, we will fail more often, but we will die trying. Okay.
So where did you say that you see yourself in?
In the imperfect spiritists.
Oh boy. You were the imperfect spiritist? Oh, Jesus Christ.
No.
Yeah, because Yeah.
I think most of us. I mean, I'm an average person, right? I'm consider myself like a dollar bill. Everyone has one in their pockets. Everybody sees one, right? So I'm very much average, right? I'm not like a $500 bill. That is very rare, and there is very few $500 bills out
Mhm.
there, right? Very few people have seen one, right? They do exist. I think the Christian spiritist is is a rare thing nowadays. Is not many of us would fit in that category yet.
Who would fit in here?
Um, I don't know. I can only speak for myself.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Okay. Number 4. Finally, they
now
are
it's trouble.
fanatical. Excuse me?
Now you're facing trouble here.
Fanatical.
I never follow
Finally, they
this.
are fanatical spiritists. The human species will be perfect if it always preferred the good side of things. Exaggeration in any way is harmful, and in Spiritism, it produces a blind and often childish confidence in the manifestations of the invisible world, leading some very easily and uncontrollably to accept what reflection and examination will show to be absurd or impossible. Fanaticism does not think, it dazzles. These adherents are more noxious than useful to Spiritism's cause. They are less capable of being convincing since their judgment is rightly distrusted. They are easily fooled by fraudulent spirits or by persons who try to exploit their gullibility. If they were the only ones who had to suffer the consequences, the harm would not be so great. But the worst outcome is that, without meaning to do so, they provide disbelievers with more reasons to ridicule Spiritism than to be convinced by it. And they do not fail to impute to all the foolishness of a few. Obviously, this is neither fair nor rational, but it is well known that Spiritism's adversaries only recognize their own reason as genuine and care little about fully understanding the object of their consideration. Hmm.
Okay, thanks. So as I said, this is where we're facing trouble. Not only in spiritism, but anywhere, any kind of fanaticism generates radical behaviors, and radical behaviors is always dangerous, to say the least. Right? Every time that you move too away from the center, you go too far right or too far left, you become a radical, and you tend to get yourself into trouble. No, if you do get yourself into trouble, it's bad. But very often, you get many in trouble with worse. So in reality, the fanatical spiritists, they do exactly the contrary to what the doctrine teaches. They go in the absolutely the opposite direction that the spiritists guide us to go. It's even amazing that we can't even call them spiritists. I'd rather not even call them spiritists.
Mm.
Those are the ones who absolutely reject reason and start believing in everything that is comes from them. If it comes from the spirit, it's good. Well, the foundation of the doctrine is that we are the spirits. With or without a physical body, we are good or we are bad. We have good intentions and we have malevolent intentions. So whatever comes from the spirit is good if it's come from a good spirit. Whatever comes from the spirit is bad if it comes from an ill-intended spirit. Simple as that. It's easy to understand. But for the fanaticals, it's a different thing. Every time that we face blind faith, lack of reason, lack of study, probably the main reason for the existence of those fanaticals, we're doing tremendous amount of harm, and the harm is not, it does not follow a proper ratio. Okay, one fanatical spiritist can cause exponential damage to the doctrine. You know, I mean, you take one of these fanaticals at the hands of those who oppose the spiritism, those who reject it and claim spiritism, he thinks of the devil or think of its ignorant person. That fanatical becomes a delight at the hands of those individuals. So I think the fanaticals are perhaps the most dangerous things for the doctrine. And the harm that they cause, because harm themselves is bad enough, but they harm tremendously the whole doctrine. And that is the need of being extremely careful. That is the need of being extremely reasonable. That's the need for spiritual directors of centers to be very careful of which books you offer, which lectures, individuals who give lectures that you offer in that group, to make sure that, you know, as Kardec says, it's better off rejecting reject 10 truths than accepting one error, one lie. I think one fanatical person can cause so much damage that we need to be very, very careful. And for safety, you're better off not taking things that you are not absolutely sure of its content, of its loyalty to the fundamentals of the doctrine. And if you make a mistake by being way too picky, so to say, I think it's worth it than being too open and exposing ourselves to this kind of spiritists. Some of them very eloquent, some of them very well prepared, but unfortunately give themselves to fanaticism, or perhaps, in my personal belief, they become a target for obsessors who wants to damage the doctrine.
Danny.
I can understand or visualize, for example, fanaticism in politics or other areas, but a fanatical spiritist, I'm not really clear. Would it be possible to give examples of how a fanatical spiritist would be acting or saying or doing? Like, I don't know if you understand my question.
Yeah, I think I do, and yeah, it's a hard question to answer. But you'd agree with me that for everything, politics, religion, um, sports, there is a range that is considered normal behavior, and when you go outside of that range, you enter into a abnormal or a harmful behavior. If that exists for politics, if that exists for sports, if that exists for other religions that we can see obvious examples of people blowing themselves up, why could not happen with spirituals, right? So the reason conclusion is it may happen with spiritualism, and it does happen with spiritualism. But your questions are so how? So how does it happen? That is hard. Is more difficult, right? But that is exactly my point in which I say that those individuals, they act exactly on the opposite guidelines of the doctrine when dealing, especially with the phenomena. those individuals who will believe in everything that comes from the spirits without exercise proper judgment. Those are individuals who will try to convince individuals, as you're studying this just right now, beyond the limit of normalcy.
Mm.
You know, if you're going to converse with someone about spiritism and someone shows to be absolutely not interested, you walk away. A fanaticist will keep on banging on the same point and trying to convince to the point that it becomes annoying. That is against the doctrine. There are those who will seek to imprint the point of view, their point of views in everything through the spiritist point of view. Let's say you go to work, you have to relate with your co-workers, you have to relate with them, and everything that you do is in response to the spirits of the spirits this, the spirits that, in a situation that it's not conceivable. You're not there to be dealing with spirits that these current spirits that to deal with incarnate spirits. And in many other situations that we can go outside of the guidelines of the doctrine, out of fanaticism, with the intention of imprinting the doctrine everywhere in every situation, and it's not going to work. You harm the doctrine more. You become annoying. You become the guy who is screaming in the subway when you try to read the book or listen to your own music. And the guy is screaming that the end is coming and Christ is the Savior. If you already know is not a Christian, you become even less of a Christian, you start to dislike Christ because that guy is so annoying. Some of the spiritual fanatical become that kind of annoying persons. And they are out there. We are lucky that now here we don't have that many. So there is many ways that we could become fanatical, but I think especially in regards to the phenomena, not being judgmental, not being careful. A medium who is seeing spirits in the subway and go tell the person that, oh, there is a spirit following you here, and the spirit wants to tell you this and that. That will go against the guidelines of the doctrine, as people do that out of fanaticism. So to me, lack of studies, levels of education.
So, this is Teresa.
That's what I said.
So I mean, I don't really know the whole story, but whatever happened to Valdo Vieira, was that kind of a fanatical thing that happened?
And it's hard to, no, I don't think so personally, okay, because that becomes very subjective. I think with Valdo Vieira is he went too much into the phenomena, his sort of projectology. They become much more interested in the scientific aspect of the doctrine and kind of neglected the moral and the philosophical aspects of the doctrine. And that's what my impression making got him distant from from spiritism. Later on, he said that he went outside of spiritism, doing all his researches with the hope that those research would bring him back to spiritism.
Hmm.
Some say that he was obsessed, and I can't say if he was or not.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, if you want to know more about his work, Angela Kurtz studied with him a little bit, so she knows better. But one thing that we have to say about Valdo Vieira is that at least he left and never said that he was a spiritist, because the problem with everything that we were studying here is the ones that are corrupting spiritism from inside because of misguided messages, or theoretical messages, or whatever, because they receive messages from spirits, they receive whatever it is, and from within spiritism they try to corrupt and distort the teachings of Kardec, which is in the end where we should always go back and focus on. And this week we received a message from Brazil that a group of people is launching a new version of the Spirits book in Portuguese. Yes, with additions from the masters Moria, Kutumi, and Saint Germain, either also known as Caboclo Sete Estrelas, also known as Lord Sirius. So the cover of the new Spirits book is Kardec and pictures of these four supposedly masters, and it's it's so out there that it's not even worth considering. But that's people that try to distort it from inside. We found some time ago a book, someone that took Jussara's translation of Genesis. I don't know if you remember that, Elm. That was like 10 years ago. She published Genesis with a whole last chapter that she received from her spiritual guide, and that had nothing to do with the rest of the book. And she published Genesis by Allan Kardec and Mrs. Whatever. I don't remember her name. And this is the fanaticism that Kardec talks about here. People that try to distort the teachings, try to distort from within, and sometimes they believe. Most of the time, they believe they are right, that they are helping advance the cause, and these are obsessive cases most of the time, and dangerous. The cases like Valdo Vieira or Zibia Gasparetto that many of you have heard, I mind less, because at least they leave Spiritism and say, I'm not a Spiritist anymore. So, I do whatever I want, and that's fine. Free will, you do whatever you want. But I have a problem with those that try to contaminate Spiritism from within, because that's dangerous. That's difficult to clean, in a sense.
And it's very important what you said, that not necessarily out of malice, not necessarily out of trying to profit materially from it, but really thinking that they are doing the right thing, that they are actually doing what's best for the doctrine. And with a little bit of investigation, you see that they are going exactly on the opposite guidelines of the doctrine. Those are very often not individuals who are full of malice and bad intentions, or doing, although there are those too, but that is not even fanatical. Those are just fraudulent people. So the fraudulent, as Ron said, is they very often they get out of the doctrine. They don't claim themselves spiritism anymore, and that's fine. But those within the doctrine, with lack of studies, with lack of vigilance, to open themselves to become target of spirits who work against the doctrine, they become fanatical, and they may cause tremendous amount of damage. And that is the need of centers, spiritual centers, to be very careful of which books you suggest people to read, or which lectures you invite into your home, because again, they may be very persuasive, very well prepared on their objectives of updating, so to say, the doctrine, and in reality completely distorting the doctrine.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, Yamo.
Yeah.
I was trying to answer myself here, but I'm gonna need some help. Sorry to bring again the imperfect spiritist,
Okay.
because I mean, at least just speaking for myself, it's hard not to compare yourself with others when you are trying to achieve something. I always said, you say me, you hear me say all the time that I follow your footsteps. You, João, Sara, Julio, And when you say that you consider yourself, I understand that's your, personal opinion, that you are an imperfect spiritist. And I read that description like 10 times by now. And I'm just asking because if you think you are an imperfect spiritist, I think I'm missing something real big here. Because, I'm sure that at least, again, just speaking for myself, I think I passed the number 1. And I'm sure that I'm not number 3 since we don't have a 2.5. So you say that, I mean, if you don't want to share, I understand because it's a person. But you say that you consider yourself imperfect speed like number 2 because there's nothing else in between and you're sure that you're not number 3, or because you really believe in the description that is an imperfect spirit? Because to me, it's a tough one here.
I think you hit right on the nail. That is not a 2.5 thing. I mean, you are imperfect, or you are Christian, or I am imperfect, or I am Christian. I can't be in between right now. I have to pick one. I agree with you. Personally, I'm far from the first one, from the experimental. I don't need the phenomenon whatsoever. If I've never seen a phenomenon in my life, it doesn't matter at all to me. But I'm far walking towards to become a Christian spiritist, but I'm not there yet. Therefore, I can only place myself as an imperfect, moving towards the Christian spiritism in that pathway. But I'm not there yet. Since there is no almost there guy type, Kardec did not give me that place. I have to place myself as an imperfect spiritist.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
It's way better. Oh boy. Okay,
Yeah, I
thanks.
think calling myself an experimental, I personally think I would put myself lower than where I stand right now. But calling myself a Christian spiritism, I'll definitely putting myself in a level that I have not reached yet.
Yeah, because the phrase the influence upon their characters does insignificant or none at all. I was like, no man, there's
Yeah.
gotta be something a little bit more than this.
Yeah,
But
no,
thanks.
you got absolutely right. Since it doesn't give me a 2.5, there is no 2.8. I have to stick with 2 because I
Okay.
don't deserve 3 yet.
Okay. So we're in the same boat. I'll take that.
All of us, I think, we're all average again, average. Dollar bill, they're all dollar bills.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's not that many $500 bill walking around.
Okay.
But they do exist, and they are not perfect also.
Okay, we're up to 29, yes?
Yes.
Okay. The means of conviction vary considerably among individuals, and what persuades some will have no impression on others. Even though one person may be convinced that certain physical manifestations and another by intelligent communications. Most are persuaded by reasoning. We could even say that for most of those who still cannot appreciate Spiritism to reason, the physical phenomenon will have little impact. The more extraordinary the phenomenon in the way they seem to depart substantially from known laws, the more opposition they encounter. And for a very simple reason, we are naturally led to doubt anything that is not sanctioned by reason. All will consider them from their own point of view and offer their own individual explanation. The materialist attributes to them a purely physical cause or hoax, the ignorant or superstitious person to a diabolical or supernatural cause. However, an explanation that is prepared beforehand has the effect of destroying preconceived ideas and showing at least the possibility, if not the entire reality of the fact, which is thus comprehended before it is seen. So, by accepting the possibility of a fact, 3/4 of the conviction has been realized.
Thanks. So again, the phenomena. Let's put the physical manifestation that's on your face. I mean, it's affecting all of your organ senses, your eyes, your ears. It's there right in front of you. It's not enough to convince people of the doctrine as a whole. Begin with those, especially those more intellectually prepared, will absolutely not believe that it's come from other intelligences, invisible intelligence. You most likely call it a host. Most likely find new different reasons for that those phenomena that's happening. They cannot deny they are seeing it. But there's you deny that it's come from spirits, that is a spiritual phenomenon. That we'll call it. In the more intellectual you say it's a host, it's say they will find other physical causes for it, and the less intellectual will perhaps jump in the realm of the superstitious, the mythical, the mystical, but will not be the true fact that's being caused by spirits. And when I read this, the first thing that came to my mind was uh, chemistry lessons, in college or high school. That first you go to the theory. You don't know first you understand the whole theory, and then there is the lab class when you go to the lab and you put on the experiment. By the time that you go in the lab and you put your little white jacket on and you get all set to do the experiment, you know what to expect. You know if you do it right, what is going to happen, and if it doesn't happen as expected, you understand that something went wrong along the way, that you committed some mistake, right? And even if some things go completely wrong and nothing happens, because you already know the theory, because you already prepared yourself before the experiment, even if nothing happens, you know that it didn't happen because something went wrong along the way. And if everything goes completely right and happens, whatever that is that experiment that you're doing, in chemistry, it is completely understood by you. It's not miraculous. It's not supernatural. You can easily explain. So what Kardec tells us is exactly that. In order to get people to understand the phenomena, to to see the phenomena for what it is. If you prepare them in theory first, if you teach them what are the spirits, what the spirits can do and not do, how spirits can associate with matter, how can spirits manipulate ectoplasm in order to perform those physical phenomena, it becomes much easier, much more malleable for those individuals to, when the phenomena happens, to understand, to not call it supernatural, to not say it's a hoax, because they have the theoretical understanding of it already, right? And if it does not happen, as I'm going to read ahead, I'm anticipating the reading a little bit of now. If it does not happen the same way that in a in a chemistry lab, you know they didn't happen because we did something wrong along the way. We used perhaps the wrong ingredient, or the temperature was not at the proper temperature, or something along the way was not proper to allow that reaction to take place as predicted. So in order to get, of course, talking about people who are interested in understand the phenomena, the theory first is absolutely necessary. And to not believe in things that happen in front of us like that without having that theory behind us is almost like a self-defense mechanism. There's no way for us to prepare, to protect ourselves for being taken as a fool, for being used by a fanatical or anything like that. Now, I don't understand this. I don't stay away from that. I don't want to deal with these things that I don't understand. But if I have the theory behind, if I have the reasoning behind, then everything becomes much easier to take, to understand.
Yeah,
Questions? Yeah.
last week I asked Jusala regarding um, the way I see it is the connotation with the word spirit per se that causes a problem with people to accept spiritists, because throughout history, um, the word spirit was always, not always, but most of the time, associated with something evil. And we were talking about here and physical phenomena and everything. So people have a hard time to believe in, in the beginning, the spiritism, the turning tables or psychographer or whatever. But when you see a statue bleeding or crying or whatever happens on a Catholic church, people see as a miracle and they accept it. It's more of a more acceptable. And we from what we studied, both are physical phenomena the same way. So just picking our brain, would like to hear your thoughts and why same things with different names have this different acceptance from people.
I think there's many answers, and I think spiritism suffers the attack from both sides, from the materialists and the spiritualists. From the materialists, it's obvious because they will not accept, believe, even if concrete evidence is placed right on their faces, anything that is extra material, everything that is not matter. For them, there is no God, there is no spirits, there is no soul. Um, Everything is physical. There is a physical body, and everything that we do and we are is physical. Once that physical body dies, it's gone. There is nothing. It's absolutely nothingness. They rather believe in absolute nothingness of some kind of existence after the physical body dies. Right? That's easy. And then the spirit is also attacked and rejected by most spiritualists. And as you use the example, just going to use one, use the Catholic Church. Because one think of dogmas. They have the dogmas. And they could not contest, they could not try to reason a dogma. A dogma by definition is a statement that cannot be questioned in any form, right? And it comes from a high authority. So a high authority says that miracles are supernatural, and only the saints and Jesus can perform miracles. Period. That's a dogma. So they will believe that a statue can bleed is a miracle performed by a saint or performed by Jesus. That's the end of the conversation. But we human beings who live this life and die, we go to hell, we go to heaven, or you hang out in purgatory for a long time. And in those three states, three places that we go to, you, you, we do not perform anything. We do not make any statue bleed. We cannot perform any physical or extra physical phenomenon whatsoever because we can't. It's a dogma, and you cannot contest it. Now, the only way for us is to leave those institutions who are dogmatic. When you see the phenomena and you see it's happening in front of you, and you challenge the dogma, the only option that you have is to leave that institution. Because your reason, your level of intelligence, no longer allows you to stay there. But for many, out of fear, okay, and fear is a big factor here. Spiritual mediumship is think of the devil, and I don't want to be dealing with things of the devil. I rather I rather not believe, I rather not see, and I'm not get involved with the thing of spirits, as there see very often hear people say. I don't want to get involved with that. It just shows that you are not evolved enough, in my opinion, to look for answers and accept the answers that are given to you out of fear, out of anything else. So miracles, yeah, miracles. The church believes in miracles, but who perform the miracles? The saints and and Jesus. Period. And they can perform it, and that's why you become a saint if you perform three phenomena to be considered a miracle. And you go to a whole process in the Vatican and get all those people to analyze those three things that someone has performed. And if you pass, you consider those three things, you are canonized and become a saint. By spirits cannot do anything. So once you have dogmas, and you cannot contest that, and the dogma says that spirits cannot interfere into life, and if it does, it's think of the devil. That's what it is. That's the end of the conversation. And that's why there is exorcism. The falsehood, the hypocrisy is so big that they perform exorcism, right? So there's definitely spirits interfering in people's life that merits an exorcism. But what is it? It's the devil, or it's an emissary of the devil that is perturbing people. So the truth is, they do believe in the spirits, but cannot say it because it's a dogma. You can't not see a phenomenon happen right in front of you. Someone levitate, rule out all the husks that happens over there, rule out all the falsehoods that exist over there, and as the person truly levitate and say that you did not see it. You saw it. But some will find all kinds of reasons to say that it was everything else but a spiritual phenomenon. I think it's our primarily fear and of institutions imposed fear upon us for such a long time that we find hard time getting rid of it. Because the materialists are very few, very, very few true materialists out there. But people who fear those things, there are many out there.
Thank you.
All right, can do one more? Number 30. So, Ryder, she's
I'm sorry.
no problem.
Okay. 30. Will it be of any use at all to try to convince obstinate disbelievers? We have already stated that this will depend on the causes and nature of their disbelief. Our insistence in trying to persuade them often leads them to believe in their own self-importance, which in turn leads them to even more obstinate. Those who are neither convinced by reasoning nor phenomenon will still have the trial of disbelief to endure, and we must leave to Providence the task of leading them onto the path of more favorable circumstances. There are too many other people who desire to receive the light for us to waste our time on those who reject it. Therefore, direct your efforts toward those of goodwill, who are greater in number than you might think. Your example will overcome any resistance more easily than will mere words. True spiritists never lack an opportunity to do good, afflicted hearts to relieve, consolation to offer, desperate emotions to calm, moral reforms to instill. This is their mission, wherein they will find true satisfaction. Spiritism pervades the atmosphere. It is expanding because of the very force of circumstances and because it enables those who profess it to be happy. When its theoretic adversaries hear it resounding all around them, even among their own friends, they will come to grips with their isolation and will be forced either to fall silent or surrender.
Thanks. So in this item, it's I think I need to go back to the very beginning of the chapter methodology, in which Kardec states clearly that it's a very natural and useful desire that we have to share the things that we think are good, the things that we have conquered, the things that we have discovered, and say, oh, this is really good. I'm gonna show this to my friend, to my loved ones. Because if it's good for me, it should be good for them as well. So the idea that we should not be trying to talk about the spiritism is false. On the contrary, if I think that it's good, if I think it's good for me, why should I not try to pass it along to others, right? And Emmanuel says that the greatest charity God can give to the doctrine is its expansion, right? But then comes to whom? And in this passage here, basically what Kardec is telling us is what Jesus has already told us. to not throw pearls to pigs. There are those who are completely closed in their little bubbles, in the fears, that they would not be receptive to anything. Why should we waste precious time and resources with those who are not ready? But he also makes a very strong statement that those who are ready, those who are willing to hear what we have to offer, are much more numerous than what we think. And I kind of agree with him from the little conversation that I have had with people outside, that people are much more willing to hear a little bit about spiritism than I thought that was the case. Doesn't mean that they get coming to the spiritist centers. Doesn't mean they're going to, after they have 15 minutes conversation, run and online and start buying all the books and read the spirit's book or the medium's book. Not necessarily, but willing to listen and be somewhat interested in the topic. There's a lot more there than we think there is, at least that I used to think there was. But again, do not throw pearls to pigs. And more important on his recommendation here is that all of your talking, all of your proofs and brings all the books and showing this and that, and the photographies of physical phenomena, of ectoplasm coming out of the mouth of meters of physical phenomena, may not do anything, but our behavior, the way you live our lives, will have a drastic effect on people more than anything else. I have said that many times already, and I think it's a great example that we met in our spirit center once, one lady who came in, and she told us that what got attracted to spiritism and looked at spiritism was nothing of people have talked to her, was when she lost her brother in a motorcycle accident. And he was a young man, and everybody was in a tremendous state of emotional chaos, and they couldn't understand how could help such a young person. Her mother, the mother of the one who died, was completely calm, was in a not in a state of not accepting or not of neglect of anything else, but perfect together. Of course, grieving the loss of a loved one, but there was no despair, there was no hysteria whatsoever. And the only difference between that person and everyone else who was in a state of hysteria is that she was a spiritist. And that lady at that point said, listen, if a spiritist is able to do this to my mother, the one who should be in the highest state of hysteria, I want to look at this doctor, I want to see that. It was the behavior of the mother that led her to look at the doctrine. What is it about my mother? What is it about this doctrine that allows my mother to be so well composed while everybody else is breaking apart emotionally? And our behavior here has that ability. The people, you may say anything, but when people see us living our life with righteousness, dealing with whatever life throws to us, the good and the bad, without going too far to the right and too far to the left. Remember what Emmanuel would told Chico when Chico was extremely sad and life was going bad and he was almost in a state of depression. Emmanuel told him, calm down, that shall pass. And a few weeks later, everything passed and he was so vibrant, so happy, everything was going wonderfully well. Emmanuel comes to me and told him, that also shall pass. to live in that state of stability, no matter what happens in life, that is the greatest example that Spiritism can offer. In the good and the bad, you are able to maintain that stability, that emotional stability, proper behavior throughout life is the greatest example that we can give, and people will notice that. People will see that. And that will attract people's attention. Okay? We went over a little bit. We can make our final prayer.
Okay, I'll make the final prayer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Heavenly Father, spiritual benefactors, with our hearts full of gratitude, we thank you as we gather here again tonight through our studies with our teachers and mentors, guiding us and assisting us of understanding who we really are, the work that has to be done now and ahead. We thank you, dear Lord. We ask, as we end our meeting here today, be able to continue with our studies throughout the week. And most important, to keep ourselves in prayers for all that is surrounding us here on this planet Earth. We thank you, dear Lord, for your assistance, your guidance, always with us. We pray for each and every one who are in hospitals and hospices, dear Lord, for all that's going on now. May we keep ourselves strong with faith in our hearts that we are not alone and never will be. With our hearts full of gratitude, dear Lord, we ask as we leave here today to be with us throughout the week, now and always. With our hearts full of gratitude, we thank you. And with that in mind, we ask permission to close our meeting tonight. So be it.